Okay.
Marni. Hi, Marni Mandell. Hi, it's great to talk to you.
It's great to be here.
How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty
Pretty
good.
good.
Yeah, so far this
So
week has been pretty great.
that's great. So let's start with an intro. So if you can tell us about yourself, what you do, and how you got to what you do would be great.
Sure. So I am a fundraising coach, and I got to this through many different parts of my career journey. My first career was running nonprofit organizations, and that was for the first 10 years. And that's really where I learned how to fundraise. But then about 18 years ago, I jumped into the startup world where I was building startups, both my own and others, through many, many different industries. But the thing that was consistent is that I was continuously fundraising. And I would be brought into the boards to talk about what we were doing in the company. And then when I was fundraising for my own, I was always, pitching basically to angel investors, to venture capitalists, all of the time, on stages, off stages. And then about a year and a half ago, I was in Israel on October 7th, and we had been in our safe room for a while, and we decided that we would bring our twins to the United States. So we came to the United States, but I wanted to be able to help. And so I, along with a number of other Israeli tech founders, got together and we created the Israeli Children's Fund. And that was really to go to support all of the children who lost one or both parents on October 7th. And that number stands at more than 400 now. And our goal was really to raise about $200,000 per child, so that we could really help their um, their recovery in whatever possible way we could. And that really got me back into my fundraising on the nonprofit level. And I took a whole year off just to do that. And I raised, along with a number of other people, we've raised about $23 million. But what really got to me during that year is that we built the champions. The champions were this group who all committed to go out and fundraise, but most of them had never fundraised before. And most of the time they would say to me, Marni, I can't ask for money. And somehow we brought them from saying I could never ask for money to them calling me up and saying, oh, we have $10,000, or we just raised $100,000. And it was this real turning point. And after that year ended, where I had committed to myself to do this, I was really trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. And I realized that fundraising is this skill that, quite frankly, very few people have naturally. It's one of the scariest things people can do, but it's also one of the most critical. I mean, it can change lives, it can build movements. It actually helps to change the world. And I love it. And it's something that not many people love. But I thought to myself, if I could really help more people learn this skill, it means that the change that we want to bring into the world can happen. And so that's what I committed my next chapter to doing. So I am now helping people, whether that be on the nonprofit side or on the startups. But all of what I do is always focused on impact and how we can help change the world for the better.
Wow, that's so impressive. And the fact that you guys managed to, this group that you formed managed to funds to fundraise so much money to really make a difference for these children is so special. This must be such a special feeling, right? That you actually made a difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, first of all, I think it's a testament to what a lot of people can do when they have a real feeling, right?
Mm.
And what I found, not just in this experience, but just overall, is that fundraising for me was always about building relationships. And maybe that's why I think it's different. I'm not the person to come to for an email campaign. I've
Mm.
run many uh, crowdfunding campaigns. We actually ran one for the Israeli Children's Fund. But one of the things that I even taught our champions back then is that crowdfunding is only successful when you do one-on-one asking, right? If you put it up on Facebook or Instagram, most likely it's really not picked up. But when you pick up the phone and you call a friend, a relative, somebody you know who you think would care, and you say, there's a crowdfunding campaign going on, I would really be honored if you would join me in helping to support this. More often than not, they're going to say yes, which essentially is what I believe about fundraising, is that it's all about relationships. And if you look at the fact that we had over 100 people join us, on top of the professionals that we hired, on top of really everybody who joined in this, at the end of the day, the money was raised because of relationships, every single one of them. And I can say that without a doubt. And I think that, when we look back at this time in our lives, there's going to be a lot of pain. There will always be a lot of pain. Um, but I can't remember who it was that, I think it was even Mr. Rogers that said, in the worst of times, we look for the helpers, right? And
Mm.
I look at really the last 2 years, last year and a half, and on top of the pain, there were so many people that helped. And they helped in many ways, and in the ways that they could. People brought out paintbrushes paint houses. People sent over millions and millions of pounds of clothing and supplies and resources, but also millions of people sent over money. And that money is what really enables us to build and sustain all of the recovery efforts. And money is what really ultimately helps every single organization. And let's face it, like, startups
Yep.
by and large can't exist without money.
Nope.
So it's kind of this
Nope.
amazing skill that really goes through everything.
Right. Everything revolves around that. And I wonder, when you meet um, people that want to fundraise, which for whatever cause, if it's
Uh-huh.
business or nonprofit, and what if they tell you, I don't have friends to call. All my friends don't have money. I don't come from from a family of any substance. This is a situation like I don't have anyone to call. I'm starting from scratch.
Uh-huh.
What what's your advice there?
I mean, it's less advice and more, I think we have to challenge those assumptions. People don't have money. What makes us think that, right? And also, you know, our friends and our family, I think we are most afraid of talking to them about asking for money because it feels like we're begging in some way, right? And I had to learn a long time ago. I actually learned it from my grandfather, that asking people for money is not begging. It's essentially inviting them into the ability to help make an impact. And that shift in mindset is very different, right? When I go and ask somebody for money, it's like, it has this like groveling effect, right? I'm going to ask you for $10, right? Or I'm going to ask you for $100, or I'm going to ask you for $10,000. That's a lot of money. But let's face it, if we've been able to take the time and money out of our lives to do something, it's a very different proposition. If I go to my best friend and I say, look, this organization is incredibly important to me. My child was affected by cancer and I've gotten involved in this organization. Um, and I'm seeing the impact. I'm seeing the impact on my own child, and I'm seeing all of the children that are sitting around them in this ward. And they brought these clowns in, and these clowns have just fundamentally changed their lives, right? They come in once a week, and then for that hour, their lives are totally brightened. um, and because of that, I've decided that, number one, any amount of money that I can spare at this point, I'm gonna donate it. And I would so appreciate it if you would join me in that in whatever way that you can. It would just, it would mean the world to me. And if it's something that you're inspired to do, that would be wonderful. And I completely understand if it's not. But I can't imagine a friend or a relative having that honest conversation with you and saying, yeah, not really for me. Like maybe they would say, you know, I'm a little bit too strapped right now, in which case that's completely understandable. Maybe they'll say it's not the right time. Also, completely understandable. The best part is that you have that relationship that they can say that to you. And you haven't had to beg, right? You've had a conversation about what something means to you. And the goal then is to bring them in and then to keep them in. If the answer is no, the answer is no. Wow. Well, thank you so much for spending the time with me talking about this. Let me know if you ever are in a position to do something. And if not, I would just love you to share this message with other people who you think might be. And if you are, that's really amazing. And, you know, I would, number one, thank you so, so much. I would love to bring you into the hospital one day and have you meet some of these medical clowns and see the effect for yourself, because, you know, you never know. Maybe you want to become a medical clown one day. You'll just be so overwhelmed by it. And by the way, this is a very real example. I
Yeah.
worked, one of my jobs was that I was running the fundraising for a camp for children with life-threatening illnesses. And they had medical clowns, but that actually wasn't the thing. I went to one of our largest donors. I think they had donated about $1.5 million, right? And I went to her very fancy apartment on Park Avenue one day to meet her. And I will be damned if, I mean, halfway through the conversation, she tells me that she's a medical clown, right? And this is like the most executive of executive women you've seen in your entire life. And she informs me that the best day of the week is when she goes in and she dresses from top to bottom in a clown outfit. And she's also become, quite frankly, one of their best fundraisers. So, like, you really just don't know what's going to turn people on. You don't know what they're going to be inspired by. You don't know what's in their past. You don't know what will be in their future. And I think that that's what makes fundraising so wonderful, to be honest, because in a sense, it's the best common denominator. I mean, you know, my mom did an amazing thing years ago. When I was a child, I think she's actually one of also my greatest influences in this way. My mom was a single mom, and we were fortunate to be helped by my grandparents. But she looked around and she saw that there were a lot of single mothers out there who wanted to provide their children with education and camp, and they couldn't afford to, and they didn't have the support that we had. And she also realized that there was a little bit of a loss of dignity in having to go and ask for something like that. And so what she did is she decided she would become the representative on behalf of these women. And she would go and she would talk to the women and she would find out from the mothers what they had wanted to provide for their children in terms of education, community assistance, things like that. And then she would actually go to the community and stand in front of the committee as the anonymous representative, or as the representative of this anonymous family, so that they could maintain the dignity. And so she would actually go and stand in front of people and ask for money on behalf of people so that they got to retain their dignity, right? And even when I think back to it, it gives me chills, because that's like the ultimate form of giving, right? You don't know who's giving and you also don't know who's receiving. You just know that you're making a difference, both as the people who are giving and the person who asked for that help. Like, I haven't even thought about that story in a really long time, but it made a real impact on me. Uh, yeah.
Wow. That is such an impactful story. And that was throughout your when you grew up, when you were already.
That was when I was, I think, in middle school and high school.
Wow.
She did that.
These are
Yeah.
really impactful years also for you as you grow up and you see somebody so
Yeah.
important in your life giving to others. right? And I'm just thinking from that, like fundraising could really impact also a family, right? Your children, when they see you
Yeah.
going out and making a difference for a cause,
Mhm.
for a
Yeah. In
nonprofit.
fact, we last year, because I did a lot of traveling for raising this money, and my kids were 3.5 back then, right? And so we would actually go and on Friday nights, they didn't like that I left town a lot. And so on Friday nights, we light candles. And we have this tradition of lighting candles for a lot of people because we lost, unfortunately, a lot of people in my family around the time they were born, and they're named after a lot of them.
Mm.
But that's a longer story. Anyway, so we light about 13 candles, but
Wow.
we ended up adding a candle for the children that I was helping, um, so that they were able to understand in a 3-year-old way that there was something really important that I was going out and doing. And they would say, "This one is for the children that you're helping." And I hope that, and we still light that candle every week. Uh, and I hope that it's one of those formative memories that even if they don't necessarily remember the why behind it because they were too young to experience, or hopefully they were too young to remember that moment in our lives, they will hopefully retain the knowledge that me and my husband, felt like this was such a critical issue that we were going to sacrifice some of the time with them, and you know and knowing that we were going to do as much as we possibly could to help. So I can hope that we pass on that value. But I think
Amazing.
that, I still go back, I spent a year doing this, and what it brought up for me really still was that passion I have for fundraising, which lies at the core of everything, which is just building relationships.
Amazing. And I'm thinking it into the startup world, right?
Mhm.
It's all around us. People
Yeah.
are raising, they don't, in startups, we don't call it fundraising,
Right.
or, it's not for a cause. You're raising funds for your startup. It's for business.
Mhm.
And what do you see there as kind of blockers or things that make startup founders fail in kind of achieving their best in fundraising?
So it's really interesting. I have a client right now. I've split my practice down to two different groups. The first is founders of companies or of organizations, and founders of startups. And I'm really focusing on impact startups because
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's the closest to my heart, and it's what I want to focus on in the next chapter of my life. Um, and yet it's interesting. I've been in fintech, I've been in marketing tech, um, I've I've coached founders in pretty much every possible field: cyber tech, femtech, everything. Um, the number one thing that is the challenge of every single founder I talk to is, quite frankly, just following up. It's like,
Okay.
and I'll tell you why, because we find every excuse in the book why we didn't do it. Um, our companies were so busy. There was a huge disaster, tariffs. My biggest client was failing. I mean, the list is honestly endless. And I've learned two things. Number one, all of those things are real. You can't say that they're not. But they're also really good excuses, because fundraising is actually the scariest thing I think you can do, because every time you go out there, you have a 1 in probably 50 chance of hearing yes, right? So you have to go out over and over and over and over. It's actually far harder than in the nonprofit world, because let's face it, like, angels hear pitches day in and day out, and they only have a certain amount of funds. Same thing, venture capitalists, they are looking for the needle in the haystack that's going to turn into the unicorn that's going to save the rest of their portfolio. Um, and that's their job, right? Their job is to figure out why it should be a no, more than why it should be a yes. I mean, if you really think about it that way, which means that a founder who knows that in the back of their head has one of two choices. They can either feel like it's futile to do this because it's going to be a no anyway, or they can say, hell be damned. Like, I'm going to go out every day. I'm going to pound the pavement. I'm going to hear 50 no's, but I have to hear them in order to get to the yes. And that mind shift ends up really being the make or break, because we will always hear infinitely more no's. And the question is, what's going to cause us to think that that last email that we are putting off might be the one yes, right? Or that one pitch, or that one stage that we say we don't have time to get on because, something's going wrong. And it's the easiest thing. It's like 7:30 at night. Look, I have to stay at the office really late. I didn't have time. I just didn't have time to go to that event. I know there were like 5 VCs on the panel. They weren't going to like me anyway. I mean, it was just a waste of time, right? We never know who is in a room, right? If those 5 VCs that were sitting on the panel aren't the ones, you don't know what random partner in a VC decided to show up to see who was on stage that night. You don't know who you're going to bump into at a conference that you really probably don't need to go to in your heart, but you're like, I mean, I've sent founders to conferences all over the world. I've been to conferences all over the world. It is true that a lot of times they feel like a waste of time unless you come with the strategy that I'm going to meet 3 to 5 people who are going to help push me forward, right? If I go into an event and I don't leave that event without 3 to 5 people who I've had a real conversation with that enables me to then follow up with them, again, it's not necessarily the person standing in front of you, but it is all of the people that they know. And when we build real relationships with people, at least I fundamentally believe that the world wants to help us. Maybe that's me being way too optimistic, but I've sat next to strangers on planes and I've had them connect me. I've had them teach me things that I would probably have to pay thousands of dollars for. I sat next to a chief negotiator of an airline industry like Boeing. This was like 15 years ago. And in the 2 hours I sat next to him, he gave me probably a masterclass on negotiations that I've used ever since that day. We never know who's sitting next to us. We never know who's going to be at your next event. We never know who's walking down the street who just looks interesting. We just don't know until we make the opportunity to ask and to start the conversation. And so to me, that's what this is all about, is building relationships with people without even knowing necessarily what they can give us. But also always trying to understand what we can give them.
So how do you start if you're a founder and you're intimidated by, VCs? Obviously, you said, right? You go to 50, maybe one would say yes, right? So you're already coming from the lower side of the bar there. And so how do you strike a conversation when you're in an event, right? And you see the VC owner that you're for sure they're interested in your impactful fund. So how do you strike that conversation? How do you start that?
Okay, so I have a few different ways. A lot of them have to do with my cell phone. I'll be honest.
Okay.
I don't go anywhere without it. If I see a VC, first of all, VCs are people, so I should stop calling them VCs, right?
That's true.
If I see I don't know, John Puglio, I just made up a name, sitting across, and he's from a specific VC that I have had on my radar screen. I will immediately look him up. I'll look up the most recent investment that they might have had. And I would go up to him and I would say, hey, we haven't met before. Number one, I just want to introduce myself. And number two, I really found the last investment you made in blah, blah, blah company to be interesting because and I wouldn't just like let it hang there, right? Like I would give
Mm.
a thought, right? Because it separates you from the people who are like, ah, I'm just gonna, you know, pass it on, or really like you're a thoughtful person. And again, people are people. They, first of all, everybody likes to be flattered. Everybody likes to think that people are interested in what they're doing. It's human nature. And inevitably, I've found that people just become open to conversation. Not everybody. There are some people
Mhm.
who do not fit that mold.
Mhm.
Um, and that's okay, right? You have to know who you're pitching in front of. Uh, it's very different though than if you're at an event and you go up to somebody. You have the opportunity to sort of have that more informal conversation. Um, I've had conversations, by the way. I think it was the oh God, Draper. Anyway, he has these ties that he wears, and apparently, I can't remember what he told me. It was something about, I don't know, his kids picked out or something. Anyway, he wears these ties, and I happened to see him in the corner of a room, and I went up to him and I was like, I've got to tell you, I love your tie, right? And that's how he told me about his family and so on and so forth. And it's, I think we tend to put investors, no matter what kind they are, on these pedestals. And we think that they are the key to unlocking our future, when in fact, they're just people that get up in the morning, brush their teeth, have to take their dog out for a walk, have to get their kids ready for school, just like we do. And we're all pulling our hair out. Like we all have a lot of the same problems. Um, and when we start to think of people like that, whether that be investors, whether that be donors, we start thinking about them as potential partners rather than adversaries or somebody we have to
Mm.
go against in order to get what we want. Um, and I think that we have the opportunity just to do that one person at a time, whether that be somebody we know, somebody we don't know. Um, I always say, by the way, to my clients that are raising money, that every investment meeting that you have is an opportunity, even when they say no, because
Mhm.
you have the opportunity to learn something from them. And if you connect with them as people, they might say no to you because you don't fit their investment profile, because you're too soon, not too soon enough. There's a million reasons they say no, right?
Definitely.
But they also know everybody in the industry. I mean, that is the job of them. So my guess is that most of the time they probably also know somebody who has the potential to say yes.
Mhm.
And I can't tell you how many investment meetings I have walked out of with names and introductions to other investors. And it takes the weight off of that exact moment to get it right, right? Like that you actually can get it right because you can walk out with different kinds of yeses. And to me, the more doors you open, the closer you are to a yes. Right. And so
Mhm.
that's ultimately what I believe about pitching, about building relationships, about meeting people, and also about getting over the fear. Like it's a terrifying thing to always be focused on the no. So
Yep.
how can we focus on yeses that may not be the exact yes you're looking for?
Mhm. So you're saying don't look at the no, look at the relationship that you
Yes,
built.
yes.
This is the important part of
Right.
that. And
Mhm.
how do you follow up usually? Like, what are your tips for, you said they fail with following up,
Yeah.
they don't. So how usually do you recommend following up with a startup, with a VC?
So if it's an angel and you have their phone number,
Call them.
um, I don't call, but I will sometimes like leave a video message. Like I'll just record myself and send it to them. It was really great to meet you. I plan on sending you X, Y, and Z, but I just, didn't want the day to end before just saying thank you for your time. Um,
Wow.
I think that it's personal. I think that it's not invasive. Like if you call them, it's invasive. You don't know what they're doing in their life, lives, in their worlds. Um, but
It's also very human, right?
yeah,
It's also like a person. You're
yeah,
not kind of putting you out there as a I'm just a person,
yeah.
very relatable.
And also, I hate in the world of AI. I mean, I guess you could do a deep fake of yourself, but you probably wouldn't, right?
No.
So, like, more often than not these days, and I will say that I'm like that. It's efficient to use AI. It's efficient to use AI to write the email because it helps you get over yourself, right?
Mhm.
So often I have waited, and by the way, I'm guilty of the thing that I now coach, and I've had to work on it myself, right? Um, I have let emails go forever and ever because I have been terrified at how to word something, right? I've dissected a comma. I've wondered if you put a dash there versus a comma, maybe it'll mean one thing, maybe it'll mean another thing. It's like hours and hours of my life I've spent dissecting my own emails. And then I send them to like 3 people. What do you think? Like my co-founder, do you think this is too aggressive? Do you think I'm not aggressive enough? Have I included the right document? The noise in your head over a single email can be absolutely absurd, right? And so I actually tell my clients, use AI, right?
Mm.
Open up ChatGPT or Claude or whatever your favorite one is, and talk into it. I need to write an email following up with this investor. I felt like the meeting went X and X away. I promised I would send these documents. Help me word it, because it's amazing that when somebody else words something, even if it's AI, it takes a lot of that stress off. Um, and then you can send it, because let's face it, like the follow up email is not necessarily the one that's going to be full of emotion or do more
Mm.
connecting. The thing that connects you is that you've actually followed up, right?
Yeah.
But if that is preceded by, let's say, a 10, 15-second video, which is not a deep fake, it's like you being you, thanks so much for your time, great. Now, if you just have their email, you're not going to do that. But you got to get it out. That's the most important thing. Within 24 hours, get out the follow up. Even if you don't have exactly the documents that you need, then you say, we're gathering the documents, but I didn't want to let the day go before, thanking you for your time, whatever. And I'll be honest, these are also cultural. Like in America, there's no chance you can't follow up. You have to follow up within 24 hours. Israel
Mm.
has its own kind of differences,
Rule
but you should
book.
still follow up. I say that to my Israeli
Different
clients too.
playbook.
I'm like, follow
Yeah.
up. You're not going to be penalized for following up. I promise. Um, so yeah, that's how I approach it. And I wish that AI had been around when I was raising money. I guess it was, but very few people were using it for that purpose. And today, I think that if you're not using it for that, you are you are putting you're putting your own roadblocks where they don't need
Mhm.
to be anymore. um, do the things that make you great. Focus your efforts and attention on the things that make you great. Let AI do some of the heavy lifting on the things that are not in your best light, right? Like, we can't be great at everything, and that's okay. And AI has come along and said we can actually level the playing field on some of those things. So it would be a shame not to use it.
How do you make sure that when you say one of the people are worried from having a kind of mechanical generic AI follow-up answer email, how do you make sure to personalize it?
So I talk to my AI literally.
Uh-huh.
My husband thinks I'm crazy. He'll like walk by. He'll be like, I know you're not on the phone. Who are you talking to? But I use the microphone. And I talk, and I do what I just said before. I give my AI all of the background. I talk to it like it's a person.
Mhm.
Um, and I'll say, I need to write a follow up note on, to this VC or to this angel or to this donor. And one of the things that I saw that they were interested in was this. And I wanted to make sure to highlight something that I didn't get a chance to say. And, maybe we should put some numbers in to show relevance on this particular aspect of the market, right? I do that on every single email. There's never a time that I'm just saying, write a follow up email and tell them it was nice to meet them. Like, that's
Okay.
ridiculous. Um, and so I really like, there's not, and I'm not saying that they wouldn't be able to say, okay, somebody helped her, but really, at the end of the day, are they judging me for getting help? Like, nobody judged people for having secretaries in the 50s and 60s.
Nope.
The AI is basically that. Like, you're telling me
That's true.
all of the male executives in the 50s and 60s wrote the perfect response letter that their secretaries were typing up. Like, I'm gonna call on that. Um, their
I never thought
secretary,
about it that
they
way.
said, write to this person, and their secretaries went back to their desks and were eloquent and were lovely and made it, you know, evened out the edges, let's say. Um, and that's
Oh,
how business was also done. Like, today, we get to do that in a different way. And I'm grateful for that, because I work with a lot of engineers who are founders who really have a hard time working their way around a sentence. it, it doesn't mean that they shouldn't do it. So that's the way I.
that's that's amazing. I never thought about it that way, honestly, and it's so true. The businessmen of past days had an assistant, right? And AI is our assistant. We need to give it the background. We need to make sure we tell the story in the context.
Right.
But you were saying have the follow-ups, and how, if it's, and that I assume is relevant for, right, startups and nonprofits,
Yeah.
right? Following up, telling the story, but you don't get an answer back. That's the big problem, right? You followed up, there's no answer.
Right.
Now what do you do?
So you follow up again, but you don't write, "Hey, I'm just following up," because let's face it, that's the most boring follow up in the world, and I'll probably ignore it. I mean, I get these all the time, right? Um, I only follow up with value. What does that mean? First of all, literally any time I'm writing to somebody, it's somebody I care about. I have created, again, ChatGPT seems to be most of my life. Um, I have created a tickler of ChatGPT to inform me about any news about that person or that VC or that angel, or right. And so on a regular basis, I think almost daily, I think I have it for a couple of my clients. I get daily updates on things going on in their industry, things going on in their particular VC, podcasts that have come out that were interesting, right? I always find that I can follow up with value, right? If I know of an investor who's I don't know, focused on femtech, let's just say,
Yeah.
right? And I have a femtech client. Um, I will say to them, you have two ways of following up to an email that hasn't been responded to. Number one, you can follow up with a new number that has just recently come in. Like, hey, just letting you know, this month over month was up 50%, right? That's a new number. It gives them more information. It gives them the ability to, add something to the conversation. That's one way of following up that adds value of you to the potential investment. If you don't have anything like that, then follow up about something they care about, right? An investment they made in a certain industry that you now know something about, or you heard a podcast about, or whatever it is, right? Hey, I was just thinking about our conversation last week. Wanted to follow up, and I happen to have heard this podcast that I really thought you might be interested in,
Mm.
and you send the link, right? Don't be annoying. Like, being annoying is the most annoying thing in the world, both as you're writing it and as you're receiving it, right? Um, and sometimes you don't have either one of those, but maybe you are reminding them of something that happened in the meeting that you found really interesting later on, right? There's all different ways of playing this that are not, hey, I'm just following up, or just bumping this up in your email, and like,
Yes. I
not
really
interesting.
like the I really like the follow up with value. That's
Yeah,
any value, but make sure it's value, not circling back, not I'm just checking in, all of
yeah,
that. That's really valuable. Well,
yeah.
Marnie, we're out of time, but I have, like, I think 12 more questions to ask you because it's such an interesting topic.
Oh, thanks.
There's so much to talk about it. I think it's something that people are missing. It's an actually something that they don't know how to handle, and this conversation was so valuable.
Right.
bring in
Well,
value
thank you.
100%.
I love this, and would be happy to do it again.
Wonderful. So thank you so much. And how can people reach out to you if they're looking for to talk to you and get some of your content?
Sure. My website is fundraisingforsuccess.com. Or you can actually also get there if it's easier at marnimandell.com. You can put in any kind of information into my contact form. You can get directly to me, and I would love to be able to help you in any way that I can.
Yeah, and you have great LinkedIn content also. So we'll put that there. And what is your handle, Marni Mandell, I assume?
Marni Mandell.
Great,
Marni Mandell.
Mandell.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Very
great
much.
day.
Right. Have a great